Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Tim Kulig from Tim Kulig Free Music. I got Tom Seymour with me today.
Hey,
And
thanks for having me.
yeah, dude. And right out of the gate, man, this is the first time we're talking about it. I did it. 40 days early, did it. 1,000 tracks. I mean, exactly 1,000 tracks, but 1,000 tracks. So
Incredible, dude. I think that puts you in a pretty elite group. Hard to know exactly what that group is, but I think the consensus was maybe dozens, and you're in a group with dozens, maybe.
yeah.
That
Yeah,
have,
Kevin seemed to think it was a pretty small group, but again, the caveat being in the royalty-free space, right? Like in that space, I'm sure there's people that have co-wrote or wrote a ton of tunes in their careers, like Burt Bacharach, freaking Pharrell, stuff like that. Like they've spent decades either writing their own or writing for other musicians, right? And or co-writing in the studio. So I'm sure there's legitimately people building catalogs and probably have reached close to that or exceeded it. But again, the more I think about it and the more I'm saying it out loud, 1,000 is a lot, dude. That's a lot.
well, I do think you have to, if you're talking about royalty-free people who are writing songs for people to use free in any of their projects, not expecting any money on the front end, like maybe there's some money eventually in the back end because of the amount of plays or spins or whatever.
Right.
But that's like, for most of the royalty-free people, the motivation isn't purely profit driven. I think you do have to put that in a different category. It's definitely, it's much more, how do you say, altruistic than,
Yeah, I
know.
mean, it's about the reach of the tunes and them doing work, right? Like that's really my central and primary focus is to do that. My cat wants to get in on the podcast, apparently, throwing stuff around my studio. But that's like really like the crux of it, right? Like revenue and profit motivation aren't the forerunners. It's what needs to what needs to be done, what kind of work needs to be done, and is it doing good work, and are people using it, and what stuff do they want to use? You know what I mean? Like trying to find those paths is kind of half the challenge, and then building your production schedule around that is ultimately the goal. That's the goal. So I don't think I'm done for the year, though. I'll probably still like maybe an album more worth of stuff. I don't know. It's very strange. Like I definitely needed a pause last week for sure, but I even came up with an idea the day after I hit the number. I sat
Yeah.
down here and I was like, oh, this is kind of neat. I'll put this idea in the queue. Blah blah blah. I mean, I didn't really develop it much, but it's weird. Like the brain keeps going, even though it's a major milestone. It's all part of the process, and I've learned that enjoying the process is like 95% of it. Because if you're just looking for destinations, or you're going to show up empty-handed. Like that's not what it is. It's not about the destination. It's about the journey, right?
Well, also too, there's like I know in my filmmaking, there's a surprise that can happen. If I'm putting a film out through MVD, you can see who licenses your films, but those companies then sub-license. Point being, sometimes your film will just pop up on a cool streaming service. And then you could like just talk about that, And I imagine it's the same thing with your music, where it could just pop up on, some video that gets 10 million views, and you're like, oh, there's I tuned 10 million people heard my song.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is bananas. It's bananas. There's some content creators on YouTube that use a couple of my tracks regularly in their stuff, and they have millions of followers, and each one of their videos gets hundreds of thousands of views. So if you multiply that across the 10 or 15 times they've used my music in those videos, it ends up being at least a couple million there, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, and you never clocked exactly. Well, it's very hard. It's millions per month, right?
I would say,
yeah,
I would at this point, yeah, at this point, for sure, because people can get my stuff from Pixabay, SoundCloud, the website, and I'm building it into a couple other ones next year too. So that exposure rate is going to go up again. So it's just a matter of, who grabs it, what channel grabs it, and then that's the whole other thing too, is the collaborations, right?
Right.
Is finding content creators that really vibe on your music, and they're sought after channel, and they're sought after content. It's just adding value, man, trying to do it massively across all channels. But now we have like 30, 40 genres of 1,000 tunes, and man, it takes the load off, because that was the original goal, right? The original goal was 1,000 tracks, and now it's like, I'll probably still be aggressive for several years, maybe not as aggressive as this year, but
Yeah, this year was pretty crazy. Something like 300 tracks.
275. Yeah,
Wow.
it might as well be,
Yeah, pretty close. Yeah.
But I think the butter zone is like 200, unless it's the other stuff that's coming up this year, which you and I talked about off camera, but like intros, pod beds, there was something else that you and I brought up, and I have it written down somewhere as a thing to go into next year. But like simpler things that are utility that people need, that might actually have to be self-published, like not through DistroKid or anything like that. But that's a whole nother story too. That might be changing in the first quarter next year, simply based on the fact that there's streaming platforms out there that may not have my music next year because of their philosophies and what they're doing, which really sucks.
Well, that's a new subject we can talk about, is what might be happening to YouTube. Because there's a lot going on with that. Essentially, Hollywood is collapsing. And so a lot of the unions are trying to bully their way into spaces like YouTube.
Yeah.
And I'm not anti-union, by the way, but they're just, I'm in a union, but they're like, there are certain things that make sense, certain things that don't. Like the Screen Actors Guild is looking to push their way into spaces like YouTube. And initially I heard that and I was like, God, that makes zero sense, especially because so much of the stuff is, it's not fiction, It's
right.
It's not acting, it's hosting, or interviewing.
Yeah. How is that? That's very strange.
Yeah. But there's other things that are evolving. YouTube itself looks to be, a lot of YouTubers are sensing that YouTube is looking to shift try to pivot to become more of a Netflix style system. And because they're looking for more high-end content, because that they can get better ad revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And so they might be pushing that way. And if they push that way, then the smaller channels will be de-emphasized. Like they're being de-emphasized now, but that will get worse. And actually, what my opinion on that is, it won't be like Netflix, it'll be like Prime. Because Amazon Prime allowed for a while, you had to jump through some hoops, but as an individual, you could put stuff on Prime.
Right. In fact, some of the earlier movies, those were up there. Right?
Yeah, we always went through another distributor to try to get them on in a way where maybe they would they'd be more attention would be drawn to them. But there are people that there are YouTubers that essentially took their stuff and just put it on Prime, and that can work to some degree. And it's possible that YouTube tries to do more like Prime, where the people like you and me, we're going to be de-emphasized, where some of the failing TV shows and stuff like that, they'll try to make it go a bit more on YouTube and see if there's
like a second life.
Yeah. Some of them did that. I mean, like Jimmy Kimmel, I think Kimmel years ago was bragging about having 1 million subs. I was like, dude, that is pathetic. I mean, I was trying to calculate how many millions, it takes tens of millions of dollars to run that show every year. 1 million subs. I mean, he's probably paying like, $1,000 per sub. You know what I mean? Like they're just pissing money and they're bragging about it, So I found that pretty bizarre.
Well, that's somebody who doesn't understand fully the metrics and the economics of social media, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what that truly means in comparison to a Hollywood level regular recurrent like late night television show, right? And what the expectations there from like a Nielsen standpoint should be, right? Like how much viewership should you have per episode? You know, some of those I think you were telling me we're getting like 400,000 or 600,000
Yeah,
viewers
man.
an episode, which is nothing.
Some of the cable shows are just like sad. Like, I mean, your favorite YouTuber gets, you know, a few million, you know, like, not that, I mean, we're both not like big fans of Mr. Beast or anything, but that guy could get like, I don't know, like 10 million views in an hour or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, within
It's crazy.
24 hours.
Yeah.
Like whatever he posts, which is usually a high production. I mean, it's all high production. What am I talking about? His stuff, he doesn't put anything out that isn't heavily edited, high production, everything. It's all geared towards the latest algorithmic, thing.
Mhm.
And within 24 hours, it's probably tens of millions of views is what he gets.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
There are hundreds and hundreds of YouTubers on that scale. Not quite the size of Mr. Beast, but he's an outlier. But there's plenty of YouTube channels that have 2 million subs, and they put a video out, and within a couple days, it's got a couple million. And so the stars of YouTube, if you will, are 10 times more popular than anything on TV right now. And so, their times are bad. So Hollywood's looking to do some kind of takeover.
Yeah.
They're trying to push
if that
their way in.
happens, what do you think is going to be the alternative? Like Rumble?
I don't think Rumble works. The funny thing, a part about Rumble is people were like, oh, it's skewed conservative, people were saying.
Okay.
But I was on Rumble, and like PBS is on there, NBC is on there, CBS. So they have everything, but the traffic is not great,
Okay.
So
why do you think that is?
I think just YouTube does it. I think YouTube's more established and they just do it better.
Okay.
It's hard to say. I mean, that's the same argument with Blue Sky versus X. Whereas, like, I'm on Blue Sky too just to promote my movies. That's all. Same thing with X. I'm just there to promote my movies. I don't even have a personal account on there. But like, there's just not that many people on there. Oh, it's just not that popular. So I don't know. Maybe that's just it. They just literally need more people on the platform.
Yeah. I mean, if YouTube takes this turn, and if, like you said, for the vast majority of the people that have content on there, it's the small potatoes people. It's not the people that are banking millions of views in a day or a week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They may venture to another platform that has more opportunity.
Yeah. As long as there keeps on being new platforms that are appropriate, I think we're going to be okay. Here's a few of my issues. Instagram recently, like, I think if you do live streams or something, you can do like an hour-long stream on Instagram. But you used to be able to post longer videos. I could be wrong, but I think you could post an hour-long podcast on Instagram.
Okay.
And I think they cut it down to maybe 20 minutes. And I think that's right, 20 or 30 minutes. But like, and they're probably doing it to get more views or whatever reason, ad revenue. But like, I don't like the trend, because the trend on YouTube is, go shorter, do more shorts.
Mm-hmm.
Instagram seems to be pivoting that. Let's do shorter content. And then TikTok is that way. I think you can only do 10-minute segments. And that bothers me a little bit. I would prefer if they were all at least half hour,
Yeah.
to do a show, but so that has me worried. But I will say we could even do, but like, if YouTube pushed us out, much like early Netflix took our movies and then pushed us out, if YouTube does that same thing to us, we're definitely viable. VHS Master is definitely viable on Instagram and TikTok. So TikTok has almost 6,000 followers. Instagram is more like 10 if you include Threads. I don't know. So we're okay. We wouldn't be like wiped out or anything. And our traffic doesn't kill. Like VHS Master doesn't kill on YouTube. You know, if I post 2 shorts with the podcast, I can get maybe 300 views.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, my views on YouTube have rapidly depleted. And, you know, granted, I wasn't super consistent either. I am now because of going into the new year. I have help doing all that. So that'll be helpful, you know, that consistency. But if the platform sucks and I'm not gonna really build an audience on it, I am gonna venture into other things. I did a little research on Rumble. I attempted it before a little bit. I'm not with an account and actually posting anything, but like just going in there and taking a look around or whatever. I had a content creator that Nigmatorium. They did the they're the ones that used to do Crimatorium, the true crime podcast.
Yeah.
And I switched over to like stuff of the obscure and strange stories, strange like supernatural stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they had moved over to there. Actually did some research, and it's publicly traded. It's its own thing. It's actually it's on the NASDAQ, and it's got like a 2 billion market cap. So it's not nothing. You know what I mean? It's got money behind it. So definitely something I'm considering as an alternative.
Yeah.
You know?
I'll have a look at, I have a VHS Massacre channel on there. I didn't get a ton of traffic, so I didn't stick with it, but maybe I'll revisit it again.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's just like, I've had a number of articles and news things come across my desk regarding Spotify in the last 6 months to a year. And that's the big thing with me. Like with DistroKid, all my stuff gets published all at once, and the album's considered a package deal with the places that you send it to. So if I'm having a problem with one of the streaming services and I decide I don't want my catalog on there, it's an all or nothing thing. I got to take the whole album down if I don't want the album on there. And then if you're talking about all my music, and I'd have to unpublish all of it, which is bizarre. So there's an alternative where I can go with the folks that do my YouTube content ID, the folks over at Frequency, and have them be my music distributor instead. They collect all the royalties for the mechanicals on streaming services and everything else and social media. And then if I run into a problem, or if somebody changes a policy on Spotify, kind of like the thing that was in the wings about them allowing remixes by end users and letting them publish remixes of songs and the original artist not getting a dime, I was like, that's fucking happening.
Crazy.
That's not happening with me. And their new royalty policy is anything that has less than 1,000 streams, they don't pay out on, which is fucking garbage, is what it is.
Yeah.
It's garbage. And meanwhile, they hammer individual artists for bot streams, right? For promotion services, stuff like that, for bots. And rightly so, you're falsely increasing the following or whatever. And a lot of those bot promotional things, they advertise themselves as organic following and everything, and there rarely ever are. Because, like, what does that mean? You have to have, like, 1,000 people that you're like, hey, we're going to promote this guy. Go out there and listen to his tracks and do whatever. No, there's not a network out there doing that. It's all mechanical. It's all false in the background. Well, apparently recently it was found that Drake was doing that to falsely elevate a bunch of his tracks. And guess who turned a blind eye to it because they're one of the...
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So fuck them.
Yeah. No, it's all crooked.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the celebrities, so they, majority of their followers are fake, and then they have their own crew of posters who will back them up on stuff. A lot of it's just false. X recently branded your Twitter account with location from where it was tweeted from.
Mm-hmm.
And which I think is a good thing. You know, it's just the country. It's not any specific information. But like, yeah, a lot of stuff that was sort of like stirring the pot in regard to dissent or just doing stuff that would upset people or piss people off. Like a lot of it is coming from like well outside of the country,
Right.
and so
Right.
you say, okay, this is just like, it's either really destructive individuals that are just trying to poke the bear,
Yeah.
or
MAGA forever with Russia,
yeah,
and
Bangladesh,
yeah,
it's like, okay,
exactly. India, like there's just some farm and some resource that's just hammering. You've seen it, right? You've seen those freaking that content where they're like, there's a wall of freaking cell phones and they're
yeah,
all posting
yeah,
comments.
supposedly, yeah, and mind you, that's the X thing. It's all sides of the political spectrum. So some people were like making fun of the fact, like, oh, like some of the MAGA stuff, and they're like, rightly so, but like there's all stuff on the left that's fake too. It was like one one person posted like, oh, like the land you're standing on is stolen land. It's Native American land. And it was like from Pakistan or something like that, like, so it's like the pot is being stirred all over the place, and just to sow dissent, to not have us unified just as Americans,
Yeah, but the juxtaposition of the dissent and the username makes people make these assumptions, and they're completely false. I totally agree with the X thing, but even that can be falsified, because if you use VPNs, you
Right.
can fake wherever you're coming from, right? Well,
I think unless they've solved that. But yeah, I mean, anyway, what was I going to say? We were talking about X.
We're talking about X. We're talking about sowing dissent. We're talking about both sides of the spectrum. We're hitting social media is becoming the long and short, I think, is that it's even more challenging because people with deep pockets are going to falsely inflate any of their attention as often as they can, because they're like, look, I can just hire 100 people to post the shit out of our content, and whether it's independent contractors or direct hires or whatever, and they just set up all these different accounts. It's your job 40 hours a week to blow up this content, because the algorithm doesn't care if you have a unique IP and you're commenting on the stuff and you're up, thumbing up this or whatever. Like, you're going to gain an advantage because they are looking for, all the platforms are looking for engagement.
Yeah,
That's really what it comes down to.
This is not like, you almost want to say there's too much money in everything, because like we've talked about this, I think, in the past, like the Kardashians' rise to fame, a lot of it had to do with them hiring a big old PR firm and throwing millions and millions and millions of dollars at promotions. So they'd pop up on Entertainment Tonight, they'd pop up on the news, they'd pop up in all the tabloids and stuff, because they're paying. And so like a lot of, that's like a black and white obvious thing that they did to rise to fame. And then it makes you look at the system and you go, okay, well, that's what all these celebrities are. It's pay, build up the celebrity ship, and then we could potentially make money off of the movies and stuff like that. Things that are happening now is all the movies are failing. They're not really capable of creating new celebrities.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few outliers, but it's not on the level that it used to be. So they're scrambling, and I think, they're looking at YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, to talk about the Kardashians again, the mom had a multi-decade plan for those girls, and that's from day one. Nothing about that was unscripted and unplanned. Anybody that thinks that show or any aspect of it was quote unquote reality and just filmed is fooling themselves and has been fooled by the system, because everything they did, everything they wore, every place they stopped, all of that was an affiliate collaborative opportunity to make money. They showed up at some place on an episode that was bought and paid for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were wearing a, I don't know, Gucci bag and freaking whatever. That was bought and paid for, right? Like every single aspect of everything there. What they flied on, what the car they drove to the airport, everything. I would venture to guess every little tidbit of that was paid for.
It's fascinating to bring it back to royalty free music and McLeod. Is McLeod probably is the most listened to musician maybe alive.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Because he wrote over 2,000 songs, and it's been aggregating through the internet for
two and a half
decades.
decades. Yeah, about two and a half decades.
And so let's say perhaps Kevin MacLeod is the most listened to musician alive, let's say. He's not particularly famous, right? Which just goes to show you, I know there's a few reasons for this. One is that he's a composer. His music is listened to, and most of the time, people don't know it's him.
Right.
They're just hearing it. Yet, it is fascinating to me that without some kind of PR apparatus, if Kevin had a PR apparatus, a big, heavy-duty one, he probably would be potentially celebrated as one of the most listened to musicians alive. He's not being celebrated for that, except in certain circles, mostly.
Yeah, us.
Filming, yeah.
People like us.
People like us, yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the things is like again, the royalty-free music, you forego profit up front. For him in general, in the beginning, he didn't care at all. And then, so he's going as a musician, but like the concept that, without the PR apparatus, that, he's almost anonymous.
Right. Right.
So what does that say? I mean, to some degree, it shows the falseness of fame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like any real, in your face, recognizable and repeatedly recognizable fame is some kind of fabrication of the promotion, advertising, and PR system, right? Like, because it's drilled into you that this is what's cool now. This is what's cool now. This is what's, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, it's, Spider-Man, and then he's Tobey Maguire, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, like, I get that I get that what happens is PR will throw a ton of press at something. And then sometimes it takes off and has a life of its own, and other times it doesn't. But that also can happen like artificially. Like, I think there was a movie called, is it Carter? The
Get
Disney
Carter?
What was it called?
I know what you're talking about. I was thinking Get Carter? No.
James Carter. What was it called? Disney film.
It was a fantasy movie, right?
Yeah. Let me look this up.
I still haven't seen it. And it looked like, if you watch the trailer for it looks pretty amazing.
Yeah, it didn't look bad. John Carter. Okay, can't remember because it's so generic.
Maybe that was a problem.
They threw so much money at that thing, and so many hundreds of millions of dollars in promotion and advertising, that they sort of like manufactured fame for this thing. And then, because they spent so much money on it, even though the box office, I think, was at the time in the year seemed okay. Oh, 284 million it made.
Global? All in?
All in, yeah. So not,
yeah.
But that was back in 2012. They
what was
spent
his budget?
306 million
on the movie
back in 2012. Yeah,
that's like a Waterworld, dude.
Yeah,
that's like wow.
Yeah. So you had a situation where I think they'd spent so much money, their hand was forced. They probably had to throw, at least 150 million at, advertising.
Wow.
And so the movie, like, it was a famous big movie, yet, it lost money. It didn't really find its legs,
Right.
And that's a fascinating concept too. Like, how are some of these movies funded? Avatar series is like a good example of one that did take off and made $3 billion, So, but John Carter is proof that you can just pay and create fame for something.
I still don't understand how. I still don't understand Avatar. I still don't. You do a movie 15 years ago, right? Even longer. When was it? 2008?
Yeah, I think
something like that. That's a weird thing to memorize.
9, yeah. 09.
Jesus, I was right.
Yeah.
Dude, 09, and then your sequel comes out, what, it was like 2 years ago, right?
I think so, yeah.
The first sequel of a series of movies based on this thing. And in between all that, they had like a whole section of Disney World, of Animal Kingdom, devoted and built out for this thing. And it had been like several years since the movie was out, right? When that thing dropped and they developed that area. And now there's, what, 4 movies total coming out? 4 or 5 movies coming out in the back end of the first one?
That's what he did. He did say that. The third one's going to come out, and he did go on record. James Cameron did go on record saying that if the third one is going to be the last one, he's okay with that. But they definitely like, I think there were 5 planned.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like they're ready to go with that fourth one. But it's dependent on the third one. But I do know this. First one made $3 billion. Okay. And majority of that money was probably made in 2009, which is, inflation has been drastic. So $3 billion in 09 is significantly more than now. The second one made about $2 billion, I think, just short of $2 billion.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Still significant. Shows, 2 years ago. So you're talking 2023 or something, 2022, 2023, just under $2 billion, I think. Whereas $3 billion in 2009 money. That is a significant drop.
Yeah.
But
I still have the biggest question. Who's fucking going to see this stuff? Because I don't hear anybody chattering about it. I don't hear anybody like getting all excited. You're going to go see Avatar, blah, blah, blah. You're going to go see the latest movie. Maybe I just don't have friends that are that into that franchise. But even outside of it, I don't have people like getting pumped up and saying something to me that is like an obscure side. So I don't know who's watching this.
I think I don't really eat. That gets you into conspiracy where you're like, it's just like the CIA shoving money, or NGOs shoving money into this thing.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I would imagine that the prestige of the American box office maybe it is some national priority, but yeah, you do wonder about that stuff. But I do think it's what, Lucas and Spielberg talked about this maybe 20 years ago about how they thought cinema is becoming more of like a carnival ride. Frankly, those two had a lot to do with what they're talking about, because if you look at some of the 70s cinema and how gritty and low budget and independent was, Spielberg, who's brilliant, has made some of my favorite movies, frankly, has a lot to do with how films have become popcorn flicks,
Yeah.
He was called a confectionist back in the day, but brilliant filmmaker, obviously, Lucas as well. But yeah, so it definitely, things have shifted. But yeah, they thought that films were going to become more like, they were going to become more expensive. They were going to be more like event, but kind of like going to an amusement park. And that's exactly what Avatar is. And I think it's the kind of thing where you got a family, you got 2-3 kids, you're like, who's got any time nowadays? Like, okay, we got a free, we can get a few days, we'll see it on the weekend. What's playing? Avatar, I know what that is. Let's go see Avatar. You know what I mean? Like, it's just there, I can't, it's like McDonald's. You know what I mean? It's just like, let's go to McDonald's. Let's go to Avatar. I think that's all it is.
Yeah. Although, dude, have you been on a McDonald's lately? It's so corporatized at this point. Yeah. It's like all the fun has been ripped out of that franchise.
Yeah.
Everything that made McDonald's fun for a kid is gone. It is gone.
Okay, we both grew up in Plainville, Connecticut. So you remember the McDonald's in Plainville, right?
Mm-hmm.
You remember the playground up front?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe you could describe the playground for people at McDonald's.
So it was the best thing to ever happen to stay-at-home moms or dads and meetups for play dates and stuff like that. You could go there, get a cheap coffee, feed your kid for a couple bucks with a Happy Meal, and let them go to town in a freaking ball pit and like tubes throughout the, like things to climb around in that were safe. Everything's padded, slides into ball pits and just like fun to be had for all the kids. And they could be playing for hours while parents talked to each other and chit chatted and stuff. It was really like a cultural center for people to hang out. Now you're lucky to get help from behind the counter. You got this kiosk, you basically work there part-time to get your food. This trend sucks, by the way. Any like a grocery store, fast food place, anything like that, I go up to a counter that has a human being. Not because I'm anti-tech. I love technology. I mean, what I'm doing right now and what I can do to edit this stuff after the fact, sure, I'm all over it. But there's something been lost in the whole process of those kind of interactions, those kind of purchases that, like, I'm literally like, at some point, going to be like, dude, I don't work here. So bring somebody over here to check me out.
Yeah.
I don't work here. If I do, this is half off. How's that sound?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. No, I agree. The McDonald's, so I think we talked about this before, but let's dig into it. So they got rid of the playgrounds at McDonald's. And part of the reason was, this is the really cynical part, is that for decades we've been hearing, McDonald's will say, hey, we're not a restaurant company, we're a real estate company.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that you'd hear. There's that movie called The Founder. It was all about that. And that was something that some people understood. Some people were like, okay, yeah, I get it. They own the land, and then they lease it back.
They lease it back to franchisees, and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
But the one of the most cynical things that has happened is that to optimize the value of that property, they tore down all the playgrounds. In some cases, they leveled the McDonald's, because if you remember, the McDonald's had very similar sloped roofs.
Mm-hmm.
They had that sort of house-looking type thing. And that was not, in most cases, that is totally gone. And they've erected what looks like just a square box, brown, wooden on the outside, you typically see. And they did this because it's the value, the property's more valuable and the building is more valuable. And if they had to sell the building, a bank could buy it, a Starbucks could buy it.
Yeah, it could be retrofitted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be anything.
Yeah.
So because of that, and because McDonald's was such an incredibly widespread American institution, sadly, we don't have those playgrounds, which equates to tens of thousands of playgrounds lost.
Yeah. There's 18,000 McDonald's locations in the United States, which seems low if like thinking about it, because there's so many like little kiosk places like in an airport and stuff like that. And that includes that, right? Like those little mini kiosks and stuff. But let's just be real conservative and say 10,000 of them are the actual box stores, right? There are 10,000 opportunities for kids to get together and play and, have that opportunity or whatever. And they're there's literally one down in Palmetto, Florida that looked like it was fine, but it had the old style, leveled it and rebuilt it within 6 months. And it's all corporatized now. And I'm just like, this sucks. Plus, there is no value anymore. Have you gotten a meal from one of those places lately? $15, $18. How is that a value? I could get a healthier meal for less, like 2/3 of that somewhere else. So
yeah, you're much better off going to finding some mom and pop or hole in the wall,
Yeah, get a decent breakfast or whatever.
Yeah,
rather than this stuff that's frozen and reheated. I mean, let's face it, that's pretty much what most of that stuff is anyway.
There's not enough quality protein in it.
Yeah.
You know, it's all carbs. It's going to make you feel terrible, you know. So, but it's an odd thing to think of it as like, okay, they essentially eliminated thousands of playgrounds. But this is my bigger problem, and Tim and I have been chipping away at this documentary, but like it's the corporatization of the country is like, it's so intense now that you can feel it. And especially in New York, you start to feel like you're living in the walls rather than the city is built for people. You feel like you're dwelling in the walls to maintain a system, you know? And whether it's for tourism or whether it's for the upper class, there is this feeling that the country is not optimized for humans anymore. It's really just, you know, it's obviously trying to optimize to extract the wealth,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but I think, you know, some of these old commercials we've been watching, like they end up being a lot more profound than you think, because I guess it's always been bad, but I'm starting to feel it a little more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think that comes with age and with experience, and also, which like being able to look at stuff in retrospect as it compares to today has a huge value, and seeing the foundation that was being laid in like the early 80s to now, you can see like, oh, this was all engineered. This is all part of the plan, you know? This is all part of that extraction, that transfer of wealth. That was all freaking planned, you know? Like there's no question about it. And how do you fight it? How do you fight it? Well, I mean, like you said, mom and pops. We went to Orlando, just got back yesterday, and a couple of the restaurants we went to were single location places. I wouldn't call them mom and pop necessarily. One of them was the Indian food restaurant we went to called New Punjab out in Orlando was, and they'd been there for 38 years, and the tikka masala that I ate there, best I've had anywhere ever.
Yeah.
Ever. And but what's the main reason they do what they do? Authenticity. They literally said, we don't use pastes, we don't use powders, everything's from scratch here. Well, I'm like, you can taste it because this is better than anything I've ever had. And it's still affordable. You know, I'm like, anytime I come to Orlando, I'm coming back here. That's it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where some of, like, I kind of parallel that authenticity with what I do with my music, because, you know, it's all from me. You know, I'm not dropping stuff into Suno and republishing it as my own or anything like that. I'm like, it's stuff that I'm inspired to write, you know, and hopefully people appreciate that and don't seek out lesser things. You know, I mean, people are always going to love that. They're going to like what they hear. And I'm sure you've heard some of the stuff that comes out of Suno, and some of the stuff that comes out of there I think is great too. You know, I think it's pretty amazing, but there's nobody to rally behind. You know, there's no creator or artist to rally behind. I just feel like it's empty. Again, it's like another corporate level push that just.
Well, the process ends up trashing everything. You know, it's like, you know, the history keeps repeating itself over and over. It was like the Blockbuster thing, right? The mom and pops were doing fine. Blockbuster came around, worked directly with the studios, and then had a special relationship, and then could essentially put the mom and pops out of business. Then technology came in as well. But they kind of like burnt through everything. That's how corporations do. They burn to the ground. Back to the restaurant thing. Same thing happened with Red Lobster, apparently, so Red Lobster was, what happens if a franchise is not doing great, private equity will come in and buy a controlling stake.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they examine the company. Same thing happened with Toys R Us. Red Lobster and Toys R Us both owned their land. They own their stores and they own their land in a lot of situations, not in every situation.
Right.
But they
right.
had enough land. Private equity comes in, they buy a bunch, and they sell off all the land, and then they get a lease, and the lease is to maintain the store where it is. But what that does is it puts extra heavy burden on the franchise, Toys R Us and Red Lobster. And so what happens is quality goes way down. It has to, because you can only sell so much food
Right.
in that location.
Right. Or so many toys. Right.
So many toys.
Yeah.
So quality goes down, prices go up. Probably in the case of Toys R Us, they probably did buy more cheap toys from China or something like that. And they probably did jack up their prices and all of that stuff. And so both those franchises went out of business. No, what they're saying is like, the problem is they were not in a great financial situation to begin with.
Right. Well, in those leaseback situations too, it's not, we're getting really corporate, but it's not fixed. Like, and it's not like when you own a piece of, like a corporate piece of property, that some of those costs aren't, variable either. I mean, taxes go up, utility costs go up, all that kind of stuff. But leasing is a whole, like that triple net cost you get to maintain the property and everything, and the place that, like, leasing the land or the building or whatever, like that can devastate a business, because based on how long, a lot of times it's a very long period, especially with like box stores like that, you're talking 10, 15, 20-year lease. So you're locked into that. The company goes belly up. I mean, obviously that's like, if there's no money, there's no money. You can't get blood from a stone, but it'll devastate the bottom line. You can't even get out. Like, everybody's got their hand out at the end. They're like, okay, you're getting pennies on the dollar. Then for vendors are getting pennies on a dollar. The freaking leaseholder is getting, they're probably first in line. They probably have a personal guarantee or a corporate guarantee on it, Well, things get really weird.
But if you think about like an old school business, like let's say in New York, guy owns a hobby shop. Maybe he buys a whole building. It's just the apartment above, he lives in it, and it's got the hobby shop below. He works that thing. He does a great job. He pays his mortgage off because maybe this is the 70s or 80s or something.
Right.
And he's on Social Security. It was like in the 70s, but he goes downstairs, opens up the hobby shop. Makes a couple $100 a day, closes it up, goes back upstairs. That thing, which is a thing, it just like, none of it fucking works if that guy is paying $5,000 in rent or $10,000 in rent in New York.
Yeah. Yeah, because street front rent in the right area.
Yeah. Like
the volume of business you have to do just to pay for that is astronomical.
It doesn't make any sense. So like these, and it almost doesn't matter what borough, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, things got fucked up, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's the ratio of what you can afford versus your disposable and what you can do with that to get gain yourself ahead and pay down debt and own stuff outright. There's a whole school of thought that's like, I don't own anything, put it all into a freaking trust and, use debt to finance everything. And I get that to a certain extent, but at some point, man, there's a solace and a feeling of like calmness knowing that like you don't necessarily have to have any debt if you don't want it,
Right. Yeah.
If you can get to that point, it's calming, it's serene. But it's funny that the cost of living's still there. So you still have to have some kind of revenue stream. And, like, we're on this planet and we have to pay to be here. It's fucked up.
Oh, yeah.
It's fucked up, That wasn't the way things, I mean, granted, the inverse is pretty horrific. You could build a house and, quote unquote, claim land somewhere. And then overnight you get bandits showing up and just killing your whole family and taking all your shit. But, I don't get it sometimes. It's really weird.
Well,
really weird.
I mean, it's like, yeah, this is I think this stuff is fascinating. And frankly, some people listening, I know we've kind of gone through different subjects, but this, I think, honestly, I think this stuff is interesting. Like we're talking about health insurance. Health insurance is getting so out of control. People, people may just have to work as long as they humanly can until they collapse. And there is a story, this is some years ago, about an adjunct professor in New York City who was in their 70s and just working perpetually because they couldn't afford to retire. And they just dropped dead on their front lawn, one day out in New Jersey or something. And
An educator, like, it's unacceptable.
Yeah.
It's unacceptable.
Yeah. The adjunct professors, that's more, you can have a career. Adjunct professors get individual courses. So it's not they don't consider it full time, but you can be a full time by getting enough classes.
Right.
That's different than like the tenure track full timer,
Right.
So
typically the adjunct is in the industry somehow, and then they're teaching people in real time at night or something.
Yeah,
right?
and in multiple colleges, stuff like that.
Yeah.
You can do okay, but you're not taken care of in the same way as a full timer. So that would explain why they probably, had to probably teach a lot of classes just to get health insurance. Anyway, so it's like, just as an example, it's like,
Yeah. When you talk about health insurance, my renewal was close to 17 grand. Right. That's why I had to go out. I had to go out and find an agent and get the thing reduced. So I found one with a different insurance company. Ended up costing me closer to like 7, 8, right? Which still sucked. And I had a plan, like maximum out of a pocket for the year was going to be like 10.5. So if I was ever sick or hospitalized or whatever, I could be on the hook for 10 grand, right? But then he turned me on to a supplemental policy that handles the freaking out of pocket. So as long as I'm hospitalized or injured and I'm admitted to the hospital, it'll cover all of it. So the extra $400 a year I pay for that supplemental policy will cover my out of pocket, and I won't be dinged for like 10 grand. You know what I mean?
Great. Yeah.
So
it's complicated. I mean, I just Googled the other day, what does it take to insure a family? And the average cost of, let's say, family health insurance in New York City. And it was a bracket, 27,000 to 32,000, So it's like, they got you, man. In the job, you end up, what does that say? It's like, it makes it much harder to jump jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's what somebody's hoping for. They're looking for benefits, right? And if that level benefit, like, makes or breaks a family.
Yeah.
Like, if a lot of that's paid for by the employer, which in most cases is not. In most cases, the employer pays for the employee, and then they're on the hook for their family. So that really sucks. I mean, if the employee gets paid for, if he's lucky, he or she is lucky. Usually they have to pay a percentage of their own too, So it's outrageous. Something's got to give. It's just
it's weird. Like I can't figure it out. Are we just two middle-aged dudes going like, oh, what's happened to our country? But nah, I don't think so. I mean, I think things have very obviously gotten worse. And I keep going back to that Taco Bell commercial. I could feed my whole family for $5.
Yeah, I'm like, what?
What the? That hits me. I've been working on this trailer. It's much different now than I sent what I call a proof of concept trailer. I sent Tim a copy of it, and I've been tweaking it ever since. But one of the lines in it, is like, the movie's about TV commercials. It's they can be a window into the past to show what we've lost. And it cuts this guy at Taco Bell. They're surrounded by food, and he's like, I could feed my whole family for $5. It's $5.69, and I'm like, fuck, dude.
Yeah, dude, go to Dunkin' Donuts and ask for a single old-fashioned donut. Bet you don't get out of there for just under $2 for a fucking donut.
A donut, yeah.
Okay? That's ridiculous. dozen donuts will cost you like 15, 20. They're fucking donuts. Yeah, I'm swearing a lot today.
I know.
It's ridiculous.
I know. It's
ridiculous.
Crazy. Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, they're saying Starbucks is apparently having trouble because they're too expensive. And they basically said that, America kind of has their coffee game more. And, we're better at coffee now than we were, let's say, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Whereas for a while, Starbucks is like, oh, hey, it's really good coffee, actually. And Dunkin' Donuts was the place where, like, you could get, like, cheap, normal coffee,
Yeah. But now they do all the frou-frou stuff. You know what I mean? They do all the fancy coffees, and everybody else does all the fancy coffees. And Starbucks was busy cannibalizing their stores by having them across the street from each other. So guess what? Bunch of those are fucking closing now because 70% of the business on that street was on the right-hand side of the street as opposed to the left. So guess what's going away, right?
Yep.
And it's like, dude, guys, come on. This is ridiculous, Like, I don't wish ill on anyone, even this corporate stuff. Like, I really don't. I really don't. But you kind of get what you deserve when your bottom line is making your shareholders a couple extra cents every quarter than what was estimated. And I know that's their job.
Yeah, it's their obligation.
Yeah.
That's the most twisted part, Isn't it like a lawful obligation, I think?
Well,
to maximize?
I mean, that's their fiduciary responsibility to shareholders.
It's like,
that's why CEOs lose their jobs. You missed the mark too many quarters in the last 3 years, and we're going to put somebody else in play. And
it's like terrifying when you think of it in those terms.
That's, I think, where capitalism fails. Because the people that suffer the most are the end consumers. Because ultimately, that isn't set up for it to be value for us. It's set up to be value added to the shareholders.
Yeah.
Which is why we're seeing that siphoning process. And we've seen that accelerate over the last 30, 40 years, you and I, because we're experiencing that acceleration and that gap widening, that there's this middle area. It just keeps getting thinner and thinner, man.
And there's no moral there's no moral overlay that any of these CEOs seem to subscribe to,
Yeah.
Which probably the average person is more inclined to, want to try to do things the right way,
Yeah. Well, before this becomes a treatise on American consumerism, we could probably end it here.
Too late.
But damn it. Well, that's why I give my stuff away. The end. No.
The end. Yeah. Hey, me too. You can see my movies all for free. Anywhere.
Yeah. That's we're just trying to add the best value that we can, and hopefully it comes back to us karmically, whateverly, like we're just doing the right thing, I think. And till I feel like it's not, I'll keep doing this. I'll keep being on this path. And I don't anticipate that anytime soon. So I think I'm in good company with you in that regards. And we'll just keep pushing and pressing it, man. That's where I'm at.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's good chatting with you today. It got heavy for a little bit, but hey, that's what happens on these things sometimes.
We'll see.
We get into stuff.
I don't know. Maybe it'll be some shorts people will pay attention to. You never know.
That's right. Thank goodness for Riverside. Big plug.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
All right.
Thanks for joining us this week. We'll see you.